Developed by Hangar 13 along with D3T Studios and published by 2K Games, Mafia 2 is widely considered to be one of the best Mafia games in the franchise and is the second installment to the Mafia series. It is an action-adventure game set in an open-world environment played from a third-person perspective. Mafia 2 was originally developed by 2K Czech and published by 2K Games that initially released on the PS3, Xbox 360 and PC on the 24th of August 2010 before releasing on Mac on the 1st of December 2011 before again being remastered a decade later for PS4, Xbox One and PC on the 19th of May 2020. Mafia 2 sold over 5 million copies with the success of the Definitive Edition adding to its success, making it the second most successful Mafia in the franchise following Mafia 3. As always, before I continue, please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead, so watch at your own risk. Without further ado, let's get into the jaw-dropping lore behind Mafia 2. Set in the city of Empire Bay from 1945, the game introduces us to the main protagonist, Vittorio Antonio Scaletta, a young Sicilian-American mobster and war veteran. He was born in Sicily, Italy to a mother, father, and a sibling by the name of Francesca, which is where the Mafia originated, fun fact. However, the living conditions were so poor that their father decided it was time to get out and they immigrated to America. What seemed like an ideal and dream life to live with how the city looked quickly faded with the state of the apartments. His dad would go on to find some work with the guy who handled their immigration, and Vito started school, where he learned English and met his best friend Joe Barbaro. And since money was still tight, they decided to start their own business of organized crime. Until they got caught on one of their petty heists when Joe managed to escape, but Vito unfortunately was caught and arrested. And to avoid facing jail and being sentenced, Vito had a choice to either do prison time or, because he spoke Italian, to join the army and head to Sicily to fight the Nazis, in which he chose the latter. In July 1943, Operation Husky was underway and Vito fought alongside the American soldiers in Sicily, liberating the town from Mussolini's tyranny until Vito was injured and is placed on leave, where he returned home to Empire Bay and reunites with longtime pal Joe Barbaro. They head to the bar for some drinks, but before they get there, we learn that Vito's father passed away before he went to the war. They get to the bar when Joe's saddened to learn Vito's gotta go back to the army since the war ain't over. But Joe ain't having it and makes a call to someone who can forge discharge papers. Vito visits his mother and sister Francesca later that night when he learns that Vito's father left his family in debt before his passing. Vito tells his mother he doesn't have to go back to the army thanks to Joe, but she doesn't approve of Joe and his activities and tells him to go see Derek Pappalardo at the docks to get some work. Vito leaves the apartment to find his sister Francesca confronted by a loan shark enforcer due to his father's debt not being paid. Vito takes care of the enforcer and he learns his dad is 2K deep in debt to a loan shark. Vito vows to take care of it, but working a normal job ain't gonna cut it for what is owed, so he heads to Joe's and explains the situation. Joe knows some ways to make good money, but the work is more risky. Before they do anything though, they go get the counterfeit discharge papers from Joe's contact Giuseppe. Vito questions the legitimacy of the papers, but Giuseppe is confident the army won't contact him again. Joe introduces Vito to one of his contacts, Mike Bruschi, who owns a junkyard. He gives him his first job, boosting cars. The only downside is, the car is in enemy territory of a gang called the Bombers. Vito punches on with one, has a shootout with more members, before finally getting in the car and driving off to the junkyard with more bombers on his tail trying to keep it in one piece. Vito is successful and is paid well for his efforts. Vito crashes at Joe's place and wakes up to a phone call from his mother. She was worried sick since he never came home last night, but then she follows up and mentions Derek again to seek some work from him. He arrives at the docks and meets Derek Pappalardo. Vito introduces himself and tells him he's seeking work and references his dad who used to work for him. Derek somewhat recognizes the name and mentions his big drinking habit. He gives him work loading some crates onto a truck. Derek's associate Steve shows him around and Vito gets to work. But then, he realizes he's had enough of the slave labor and walks out. Steve tells him to get lost until Vito mentions Joe. Steve is all of a sudden all ears and is confused why he's carrying boxes if he's working for Joe. They return to Derek's office and break the news. Derek is just as confused. Vito explains the story and situation, but then Derek makes a call to Joe to verify the legitimacy of Vito and his claims. Derek then gives Vito a job to round up the dock workers and collect payment for the barber. but only get physical if needed. Vito goes around to the dock workers when a couple of them comply until he meets one of the younger workers who gives him a hard time, but then he meets a big black dude named Bill who isn't in the mood, and after a big fight, gets the cash and brings it all back to Derek. Derek tells Vito to meet Joe at Freddy's diner. Once he gets there, Joe mentions Henry Tomasino, who is a member of the Clementi crime family. Joe introduces them and vouches for Vito before Henry gives Vito a job, stealing gas stamps from the government. Joe tries to give Vito his piece in case he needs to pull the trigger, but then Henry freaks out and requests it to be a clean job, or the offered pay for the job is cut to a third. Vito goes to talk to the inside man's sister, Maria Agnello, and gives her a ride to the hospital. On the way there, she tells him everything he needs to know about the government building, including how to get in, the location of the keys to the safe, and the safe itself. Vito drops her off and heads inside the building. He gets to the director's office and takes the key. Vito opens the safe and collects the stamps, but there's a problem. The safe has an alarm to it, which goes off after he collects the stamps. Vito gets some heat on him with reinforcements on the way, but he ends up escaping through a window. He heads back to the diner and gives the stamps to Henry, but then he discovers the stamps are about to expire and he needs to get rid of them tonight, and if he doesn't get rid of all of them, he gets nothing. Vito responds confused, saying that wasn't part of the deal and there was no mention of expiration dates. Henry fires back saying shit happens, but he won't forget it if he manages to pull it off. Vito miraculously manages to sell off all the gas stamps in time and heads back to Joe's to crash for the night. He wakes up to a letter from Joe saying he's got a big job lined up and to meet at Freddy's diner, also to bring a piece and some lockpicks. He gets there and meets Joe and Henry. They hear Luca on the phone to someone who's discussing money troubles with someone else when it seems like it's not going his way. He ends the conversation out of rage and gives Henry the green light to do it. Henry gives the boys the job and it's a jewelry store. The guy who owns the jewelry store owes his boss money, but he ain't paying it back fast enough. So the boys are going to collect his payment in jewels. Joe's got everything figured out, so they just need to pick the lock and get right in. They get to the jewelry store and begin the heist, but then, as they're stealing the jewels, an Irish gang, the O'Neills, have the same idea as them to rob the store and run into each other. Joe and O'Neill yap to each other, but the car O'Neill drove into the glass is spotted by cops, and the sound of the sirens prompts Joe and Vito to make a run for it. They get to an area where they're somewhat safe when Joe grabs the bag of jewels from Vito and takes it somewhere safe, while Vito gets himself safe in the meantime. The next day, Vito meets Joe at Freddy's diner and he's introduced to Luca Guarino. He praises them for a successful jewelry store heist, but then he asks them if they're ready to take it up a notch, taking people out, Hitman style. Vito mentions his experience taking people out in the war, but Luca says that's not exactly what I mean. And if they do this next job the same way they did the jewelry store, they'll be initiated into the family after they pay the initiation fee, of course, which is $5,000 each. Don Clementi shows up and slaps Luca's face out of disappointment for how his last job went. Vito asks Henry for more info on the job and he says it's his contract but he needs some help. The target on the contract is a guy who thinks he's untouchable, and the last person who tried to take him out fatally underestimated him. But they're not going to end up like that last guy because Henry has a plan. A good old fashioned stakeout until he shows up and taking him out with an MG. But Vito has no idea where to get one from until Joe mentions their contact Harry, who's a fellow vet and owns his own gun shop who sells anything from pistols to bazookas. Joe and Henry head to the apartment while Vito heads to Harry's shop to pick up the MG. He gets to Harry's and he shows off the MG while describing how powerful it is. Vito mentions he was in the service like him and they begin bonding until too much time passes when Vito recognizes it and heads out. He carries the MG to the truck and heads to the apartment. While waiting, Vito and Henry bond a little when Vito learns Henry's from Sicily as well and was in basically the same situation as Vito. Mussolini came into power and things went real bad. So his dad sent Henry to the States and he got a job working for the Clementi family. However, his dad didn't go with him because he was too old to make the trip, and so Mussolini had him arrested and he later died in jail. But then, just as Vito questions how his English is so good, the target shows up. Vito shoots at the target but he just gets away. He heads inside the factory, getting through the enemies until they finally reach the target. Henry is just about to pull the trigger until the target pulls the trigger on his own gun and shoots Henry. The target then stands up before he's riddled with bullets from both Vito and Joe. Joe carries an injured Henry while Vito and Joe make their way out of a collapsing distillery, With some heat on them, Vito manages to successfully get Henry to the doctor. Vito gets paid from the contract and now has enough to pay off his father's debt. He visits his sister Francesca at the apartment and gives her the money needed. She wonders where he got the money from, but tells her not to worry about it. Vito heads home, and when he wakes up, his life was going to change forever. One of the gas station employees ratted when he was selling off the gas station stamps he stole and was arrested for it. Vito was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. Vito adjusts to the prison life and runs into a familiar face, O'Neill from the jewelry store. They punch on, but Vito barely survives against him, until guards eventually step in and stop the fight. A couple days later, Vito meets Mafia veteran Leo Galante. He saw Vito's performance against O'Neill and saw potential. Leo runs a prison fight club, and one of his fighters, Pepe, has a fight coming up with O'Neill, so he pairs in with Vito to spar and for Vito to get some practice and experience. After sparring, Leo talks to him about Clemente until he says he's never met him and dealt with the boys under him, but also mentions the fee they had to pay to get in the family. Leo responds shocked with his information and says you don't need to pay your way in, but rather if you can handle the Mafia life. Vito attempts to leave the gym, but is pressed by one of Mr. Wu's fighters. Mr. Wu says Leo is crooked and offers a rematch. Leo offers it to Vito and he accepts, getting a brutal KO. A week later, Vito is escorted by a guard to do some cleaning until one of Leo's men tells the guard he has the day off and leads him to Leo. Leo goes on to say one of the big dudes wants to fight but doesn't want to risk Pepe getting hurt before his fight, so he tells Vito to step in. Vito fights him and puts him down with ease, until a guard comes in and says Vito has a visitor. It's his sister Francesca, and she tells him she's getting married. She also goes on to mention that their mother is very sick. Vito tells her to get his money that Joe's holding for him and to find the best doctor they can to help her. Another week goes by when a guard escorts Vito to the bathrooms and has him do some cleaning. After cleaning, the guard tells him to take a shower. A little bit of time goes by and the guard questions the holdup, until one of the prisoners tells the guard to leave so they can handle some business. The prisoner harasses Vito until Vito puts him down ruthlessly, but then he fights his boyfriend and also puts him down without a scratch. The guards come in and beat up Vito for fighting and put him in solitary. Shortly after, Vito finds out his mother passed away while his sister was visiting, and the money he told her to get to find a good doctor went to the funeral instead. Vito meets with Leo and finds Pepe injured. Vito learns that O'Neill's boys jumped Pepe, so he had the upper hand in the fight. And of course, they were going to get retaliation. Pepe managed to get O'Neill alone in the gym with no guard supervision, so the plan is to have Vito fight O'Neill and do the same damage they did to Pepe. Until O'Neill pulled a knife once he was about to lose, but it didn't end well for him.
Shut the fuck up.
Vito faced no consequences for the O'Neill fight since they never found out who did the murder, and actually started living the high life in prison when Leo had him relocated to his cell. Vito and Leo talk about the pain to get into the family situation until Leo mentions they broke the rules and have some explaining to do. Vito responds confused and says he thought Clemente was the boss, until Leo says 3 families control the neighborhoods in Empire Bay: the Clemente, Falcone, and Vinci families. He reveals himself to be Frank Vinci's consigliere, which is how he was able to have the power he has. He also mentions getting out soon and may be able to get Vito's sentence adjusted. Vito gets released from prison 4 years before his full sentence, serving only 6 years of his original 10-year sentence. Vito visits Joe and he hooks him up with an apartment to help him get on his feet again. He concludes the conversation saying they're going out to celebrate, where he's going to meet a certain someone. As they head out, Joe mentions to Vito the guy who's picking them up is a pretty important person until he finally meets him for the first time, Eddie Scarpa, the underboss to the Falcone family. They arrive at the gentleman's club and Eddie goes on about how Leo's been gassing Vito up behind the scenes and told him about the Clemente situation. He continued on saying he works for Don Carlo Falcone and they're looking to expand, until he extends an invitation to Vito to join the family, where he almost immediately accepts. Joe and Eddie get shit-faced until Eddie decides he wants to go home. But then they notice a peculiar smell in the car until Eddie realizes he has the body of Frankie Patz in the trunk, which he was meant to take care of but got too drunk. They head out to the old observatory, get another whiff of the body, and finally bury the body. They head back to Joe's apartment and call it a night. Vito wakes up to rocks being thrown at his window by Marty and heads down to meet Joe. Joe has a business venture for Falcone, selling cigarettes, and brings Vito along with him. The first spot they go to goes well, until they get to the second spot and are interrupted by the gang that runs that territory.
What you selling, Mac?
You buying or just window shopping?
Maybe.
We're selling smokes. $2 a carton, $100 a crate.
I'll make you a deal. You fork over 10 cartons and maybe we'll let you and your buddy get out of here in one piece.
Hey, look, pal. How about you get back in your cute little car with your little friends there and I'll pretend I never seen you. Sound good?
You don't get it, do you, you fat motherfucker? This is our turf, and it's gonna cost you to operate here. Now pay up.
You're the one who doesn't get it. You have any idea who you're talking to? One last chance. You walk away now and...
Yeah, I'll tell you who I'm talking to. A fat two-bit fucking Dago door-to-door salesman hawking stolen cigarettes on my turf. And it's time to close up shop, asshole. Okay, boys. I think it's time for a fire sale. Shit, Joe! Oh, fuck. What do you say now, Porky?
What do I gotta say?
That's what I gotta say.
Come on, hop in that car and let's go.
They chase after them but lose them. Vito gives Eddie a call at the phone booth and Eddie isn't too happy after Vito explains the situation. Until Eddie mentions he already has plans for retaliation and says to meet Steve at the Crazy Horse. They arrive and rain hellfire on the abandoned diner. The next spot for retaliation is the Foundry. They arrive and come in with bats until one of the greasers pulls out a gun, and it becomes all systems go for a shootout. They clear the location of the greasers and regroup at the end gate before splitting up. The boys need money to pay back Eddie, and there's a fancy looking hot rod in the parking lot of the Foundry, which Vito points out that they can make some decent money from selling it. Vito takes the hot rod to Derek and sells it, making enough money to pay back Eddie. Vito meets with Eddie and gives him the cash they owe. They call it a night and Vito wakes up to a call from Eddie telling Vito that some shit's going down and to bring a gun and a car. Vito arrives at the bar and is introduced to Carlo Falcone, the don of the Falcone crime family. He mentions Clemente and Luca until Vito basically says fuck those guys, they tried to extort me and left me to rot in prison. Carlo follows up saying those two are planning something on the Falcone family but want to do something to them first. Eddie explains the situation and says Luca might be involved in a car containing some of their guys going missing last night. He continues on mentioning Harvey Beans, Tony Bowles, and Frankie the Mick who were in the car, but the problem is, Beans is Carlo's accountant, which is causing major concern among the Falcone family. He wants Vito to follow Luca to see if he's involved, as well as rescuing Beans and the other guys if they're alive to stop them from talking. Vito waits for Luca and begins following him to Clemente's slaughterhouse on the other side of Empire Bay. Vito finds a shitty way in and sneaks his way to the room where the boys are. The sneaking doesn't last too long when his stench is recognized by Luca and Vito was spotted. But the stench is too strong for any triggers to be pulled.
Jesus Christ, what is Captain Shitbag here to save the day?
Shut the fuck up, Luca.
Hey, I know you. You're the chump who was hanging around with that moron, Barbaro. I thought you was still rotting in the can. What the fuck you think you're doing here?
Falcone sent me. He isn't too fond of skinny little cocksuckers trying to turn his guys into mincemeat.
So, you joined up with Falcone, huh? Well, I'll tell you what. If you knew what was really going on, you'd realize that you was better off in jail. But that don't matter now anyway.
Vito survives against the brute enforcer until he is taken down again, and as he is about to get butchered, one of the guys kicks Vito's gun to him and he shoots the big guy, killing him. Luca runs out and Vito takes care of his guys. He rescues the boys, but unfortunately Frankie didn't survive. They get into a shootout with Luca's reinforcements before Tony forces his way into Luca's hiding spot with a cart and takes care of him. Vito returns to Eddie and explains what happened. He praises him for getting the job done before telling him to burn his clothes. Vito changes and heads back to the Falcon when he finds out him and Joe are being initiated into the Falcone family tonight. But before that happens, Vito has a word with Leo. Vito learns that Leo played a part in Vito being made into the family, which leaves Vito speechless. Leo goes on to say he was going to bring him into the Vinci family, but didn't feel right since Joe and Vito grew up together and are the duo. Vito and Joe head upstairs to get officially initiated.
Gentlemen, this is Vito Scaletta. Vito, know that this family of ours is a secret. You are entering the Society of the Chosen. A society which does not exist to the rest of the world. Our family means more to you from now on than your own family, or God, or your country. If I ask you to kill your own brother, you must do it. Show me which finger would pull the trigger. Repeat after me, Vito. If I were to betray the secret of our way of life.
If I were to betray the secret of our way of life.
May my soul burn in hell, just like this saint.
May my soul burn in hell, just like this saint.
Amico nostra. Gentlemen, I give you our new friend, Vito Scaletta. I am very pleased to have these two talented and honest men join us. And I'm happy this has happened in the presence of our esteemed guests, especially Don Frank Vinci.
Vito wakes up to a call telling him to meet at Joe's. Upon Vito's arrival at Joe's, he runs into Marty, who tells him Joe said he did good against the Greasers and wants to bring him along again. Before Vito finds out what's happening, he enters Joe's apartment to Eddie and Don Falcone's presence. The Don tells Vito he has proof Clemente was behind the attack on their guys and officially declares war. He knows Clemente is going to try and come at them first, and since Falcone can justify his inevitable actions to the commission, they're going to act now and take him and his top guys out. The plan is, enter the hotel through the underground car park and change into cleaner outfits. Before they enter the elevator, they run into Richie, who makes them clean the floor, and they end up spotting Henry coming out of the elevator. They finally enter the elevator and head to the 18th floor. Once they reach the 18th floor, they head to the conference room and cut a hole in the window before planting a bomb under the table. Once they're done, they head to the rooftop and shoot some of Clemente's men. Then they call the window washing platform and discover someone else is working on it until they tie him up. They lower the platform until they reach the conference room and pretend to work while Joe connects the wires to the bomb. The bomb explodes, but when they survey the aftermath of it, they discover Clemente survived and wasn't in the room at the time of the explosion. So Clemente legs it and the boys shoot their way out of the hotel. They make it to the garage and discover Joe's prodigy Marty is dead. They apprehend Clemente's car and Joe takes care of business. They get back to Joe's when Joe makes a call to Eddie to let him know the job's done, but there was a casualty. Eddie doesn't seem to care too much about Marty though.
Alright, hey, don't worry about the kid, small price to pay. The main thing is it's
Small
done.
price?
Come on now.
That's my fucking friend you're talking about.
Hey, Joe,
Joe.
don't go taking it out on me. It was your right there. Nobody forced the kid to go. I'm sorry, but shit happens, right? Come by the Falcon tomorrow to get your money.
Yeah, whatever. The fuck you're sorry?
Alright, take
Vito heads home and wakes up to a call from Leon at the local bar telling him to come get Joe. Joe's been drowning in alcohol to cope with the death of Marty, even flashing his gun. Vito heads to the bar and talks to Joe. He says to finish up his drink and they'll dip, but then Leon loses his keys and Joe starts rambling on about Marty, and when Leon goes to retrieve the keys, Joe slams the table, which causes his finger to pull the trigger on the gun and accidentally shoots Leon, killing him. Vito wakes up to someone at his door and it turns out to be Henry. He wants a drink, but on the way to the diner, Henry says to Vito he is aware of the hit on Clemente and knows it was Falcone behind it, but is concerned he's going to wipe out the rest of the family. Vito has no care for it since Clemente did him and Joe dirty and fucked him over, until Henry drops a bombshell saying he wants to join the Falcone family. He asks Vito for a voucher to join and he agrees to do so. He also questions Vito on the hotel incident, but Vito denies any and all allegations. They arrive at the Maltese Falcon and Vito collects his payment off Eddie. He begins talking to Eddie about Henry, giving him the backstory with him working for Clemente and now wants to join the Falcone family. Vito gives the vouch and introduces Henry to Eddie. Henry gets to the point and says he needs work. Eddie takes this as an opportunity to find out if Clemente and Vinci were planning anything against Falcone. Henry sings like a bird and mentions Luca said some stuff about Falcone being involved in some dirty business while at Leo's place. Eddie makes sense of the situation and orders a hit on Leo Galante to weaken Frank Vinci. Vinci. Vito was shocked by this revelation due to the friendship and bond they built while Vito was serving time, and with Eddie's understanding, he sends Henry on the job solo. Henry agrees if he's allowed into the family upon completion of the job. Vito races to Leo's place before Henry arrives and explains the situation. Leo says the allegations are true according to his sources. With too much to explain and not enough time on their side, Vito attempts to hide with Leo but is ultimately caught by Henry. They head to the kitchen to talk, and Vito explains to Henry that his contract on Leo is personal to him, but then Henry fires back stating that he can't afford to screw this up or he'll be the one killed by Falcone instead. Vito tries to reason with him, but friendship doesn't apply when it comes to this business. Finally, Leo uses his wisdom to convince Vito to exit the room and accept what's to come. Vito waits outside the room until the moment hits.
You won't me big for this one, pal.
What?
Hey, kid.
Leo.
Henry and Leo came to an agreement that Leo would disappear since he's been meaning to retire anyway, and Henry would say he completed the job. On the way to the station, Leo states Carlo's always been a shady guy. He continues to state he's been warning Frank about him for years. Vito heads home to find his sister Francesca on his stairs crying. She's upset with her husband Eric because she suspects him of infidelity, and he also hits her. She begs Vito not to hit him or do anything crazy to him. Vito heads to the apartment Eric is in, and there's a party going there. He locates Eric in the kitchen with another chick, and it went about how you'd expect.
What the fuck you think you're doing? I'm busy here, okay? Get lost.
I think you should be busy taking care of your wife, asshole.
Vito sends Eric a warning to change his ways and leaves the apartment. He heads home to a phone call from Francesca. She says Eric apologized for everything and promises to be better. Vito says he'll leave him alone as long as he doesn't hurt her again. But his response shocks her to the point she tells Vito to stay away. During the night, the O'Neills pay Vito a visit and get retaliation for Brian by torching Vito's house. Vito escapes the burning residence, losing everything he worked for, and makes it to Joe's place. He takes his time to answer, but when he does, he seems to have given his place a bit of a makeover. Vito addresses the elephant in the room and explains the situation. Joe asks if he wants to retaliate right now, when Vito responds, "Hell yeah, I do." Joe makes some calls and finds out Mickey Desmond was behind the attack, who was Brian's cousin and now runs the O'Neill gang, who hang out at one of their local bars. They arrive and confront the Irish gang, which turns into a shootout until the leader leaves the bar and makes a run for it to the car and drives off. Vito attempts to catch up to them but loses them, so they head back to Joe's. On the way there, Joe gives Vito the keys to Marty's apartment to crash out while he's in progress of getting rid of it to help Vito get back on his feet. Vito wakes up to a call from Henry mentioning that he's setting up something big and wants Vito in on it. He also tells him to bring a piece and meet at the park if he's interested. He arrives and Joe is also in attendance. Henry gets into it and states he's been looking into Carlo's business and learns he put out the hit on Clemente because he was in the same business but was stealing his customers, and was planning to get rid of Frank Vinci since he was the obstacle standing in his way of becoming the main drug supplier in the city. Finally, the point behind this info dump was the famous saying, "If they can do it, why can't we?" and mentions the potential amount of money they could make purely from dealing. Vito questions the source of supply since Carlo is basically the main supplier until Henry mentions the triads. He states some of them are interested in doing business with outsiders but need middlemen because people aren't too keen on dealing with them, which is where them three come in. But in order to do business with them, they need money, which is where Henry comes in with the loan shark mention and states they'll get 35k if he gets 45k back. Vito expresses some doubt until Henry attempts to persuade him with the amount of money they could make in a day. Vito reluctantly agrees and they head to the loan shark. Henry proposes the original offer to the loan shark, but he isn't too keen and they end up settling on 55k back by the end of the week. They receive the money and head to the warehouse to do business with the triads. They confirm the cash amount and receive the supply of drugs. They head out and run into a nasty surprise.
Hello, gentlemen.
Fucking
I
set
think
up.
you have something for us. Drop the suitcases.
My shoes. Wait a minute, these guys ain't cops?
Kill the bastard! Shoot Vito!
They deal with the ambush and run into reinforcements on the way to the next location. Vito questions what just happened, but Henry has no idea what just went down. They drop the dope at the warehouse and begin their journey of selling. The phone rings at Joe's apartment when Vito answers and he learns it's Henry. He states Carlo knows about the deal and is sending Eddie over to get his cut of $60K. He further continues telling Vito to meet in the park. They arrive at the park and it gets a little bloody.
Shit, that's Henry. What the fuck are they hitting him with?
The Triad's leader's car goes past them while tending to Henry and they begin tailing him to the Red Dragon restaurant. They start a shootout which leads to the underground labs and eventually getting to the underboss Mr. Wong, where he drops an insane bombshell.
What is it that you want?
What the fuck do you think we want?
We want to know why you had our friend killed. We also want the money you took from him.
I had no choice. Your friend was a government informer.
What the fuck are you talking about?
A contact inside the Federal Bureau of Narcotics told me that Henry Tomasino passed them information about our deal.
That's a fucking lie!
Whoa. You saying Henry was a rat?
Yes, but not anymore.
That's bullshit. Makes no sense. And I suppose you had nothing to do with the little stick-up after we closed the deal with you either, right?
You think we would take such a stupid risk and destroy our own factory? That was just another reason to get rid of you. We had problems with you from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah? Well, all your problems are just about over, pal. So where's our money?
It's not here anymore.
What?
Where the hell is it then?
I cannot tell you.
If you don't tell us, I'm gonna splatter your yellow brains all over this fucking room.
If I told you, I'd be dead anyway.
Fine, your choice.
They get the hell out of Chinatown and head to Joe's once they lose the cops. They both have a cancerous smoke and talk about what just happened and realize how screwed they are, realizing they probably just started an unintentional war with the Triads. But they refuse to believe Henry was a rat. Vito wakes up to a call from Joe and realizes it's the day to give the loan shark the money back. After discussing how they're gonna make a bunch of cash in one day, Joe mentions Eddie has a job for them with a big payout. On top of the big payout from the job, they got hooked up with some fancy wheels just for this job. On the way to the destination, Joe goes on to explain the job is a hit on someone for another family from another city. Unfinished business type beat. Joe also goes on to explain the cause behind the hit, stating he ratted the family out to the feds, in which Vito begins to question the risk of the job if he's under protection for cooperating. But Joe says they're getting paid a bit, so it's worth the risk.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes?
Mr. Salieri sends his regards.
Vito now needs his half of the money to give back to Bruno. So he heads to Derek's office at the docks to see if he has work for him, and as he gives him a job, Derek's right-hand man Steve walks in and states the workers are refusing to work because of someone Derek fired because he was injured. So he wants Vito to stand there and look menacing while Derek convinces the workers to not go on strike. He agrees and they head to the warehouse. Derek and the workers have a back and forth until Derek mentions Vito's name and one of the other workers recognizes him from his dad before dropping another insane bombshell.
But what are you doing working for this bastard? After what he did to your old man?
Shut your fucking mouth right now. Don't listen to him, Vito. He's full of shit. Come on, let's go.
Full of shit, huh? That bastard killed your father, Vito.
What?
They're just trying to get under your skin.
Derek?
Hey, stop pointing that gun
Why
at
don't
me.
you ask him how your dad drowned that night?
We seen him take a walk with Steve. And then Steve come back alone. And all wet.
Stop pointing that thing at me.
What the hell happened with my father, Derek?
You nuts or what? Who are you gonna trust, me or these now unemployed losers? We known each other for a long time, Vito. Think of all
Why
the
were
things...
you all wet, Steve? You dive in and try to save him?
Because he wouldn't stay underwater. Keep your mouth shut! Vito, you swore an oath. I was there. Our loyalty to the family is greater than to our own families.
Tell that to my mother.
Should I kill him? No, not here. We'll settle things with him later. You disappoint me, Vito. You really do.
Now it's time to take the prick down. Vito and the boys shoot through Vinci's boys until Vito gets inside Derek's warehouse. After getting Molotovs thrown at him and surviving, he eventually takes care of Derek. Vito grabs a stack of cash inside Derek's office, but is still just a tad short from the money goal. Vito starts hustling and begins robbing stores and crushing cars to make the rest of the money. Once he finally meets his money goal, he goes to see Joe. However, Joe isn't home, and after a while of no answer, Vito becomes worried and starts to look for him. He first goes to see Eddie, but instead gets pressed on the situation with the Chinese. Vito denies all allegations and briefly mentions the deal Henry had, and follows up saying Joe was with him the past couple of days. Eddie buys the complete lie, and Vito quickly gets out of there. He tries Giuseppe next, and he reveals he was in the shop until Vinci's people came and snatched him. Vito tries the bar owned by Vinci when Vinci's men are surprised by Vito's appearance and point their gun at him. He states that he's not armed and just wants to know where Joe is. He also states him and Joe didn't do anything, however, Vinci thinks the opposite, hence why Joe got grabbed. Vito gets knocked out and joins Joe on the rooftop of a construction site tied up. Frank Vinci shows up and tries to get a confession out of Vito for the chaos with the triads, but instead continues to deny any and all allegations. Vito then gets knocked out for a second time. Vito comes to and they break the pipe to escape. Vito and Joe shoot their way out of the construction site. Once they successfully make it out, Joe is injured and needs a doctor, so Vito takes him to a private doctor, El Greco. They arrive and Joe tells Vito to take the money to Bruno. The doctor also reveals one of the boys from earlier, Tony Balls, is also inside the doctor's and was beat up so bad he may never walk again. Vito heads to Bruno's and gives him the money. Vito tells him his name and he learns Bruno is where his dad got a loan from and isn't too happy to learn this information. Vito reflects on everything that happened and realizes the truth was going to come out sooner or later. Vito wakes up to a call from Eddie telling him Carlo wants to meet at the planetarium. But as he leaves the apartment, he is picked up by Leo's guys. And in the car is none other than Triad's boss, Mr. Chu. Leo presses Vito on the fact that he unintentionally started a war between the Mafia and the Triads, and since Henry talked, the feds are now after Carlo. But because Vito has helped Leo out, Leo's caught in a few favors and has one last chance to make things right. Leo drops a bombshell and orders Vito to take out Carlo Falcone, and if he doesn't, he dies. Everyone wants him dead anyway for starting a war and for vouching for Henry, so he's already a dead man walking. Vito doesn't have a choice. Vito gets out of the car and makes his way to the planetarium. He takes out the two guards at the front and shoots his way through Carlo's men to Carlo.
Well, look who it is. This is who they send? This is an insult. What'd they tell you, Vito? Take care of me and all's forgiven? You really think they're just gonna let you walk after everything you did? Then again, chumps like you never do think about the big picture. But your buddy Joe understands, don't you, Joe?
What the fuck is this?
I could ask you the same question.
Loyalty's a funny thing, huh, Vito? No such thing as friendship in this business. Didn't your old pal Leo teach you that while you're sucking his cock back in the can? You're just a fucking pawn, Vito. That's all you ever were. When are you gonna realize that?
Joe, you just gotta trust me.
You think I give a shit about the feds? All those tired old fucks on the commission? They're using you, Vito. Just like Clemente used you. Just like I used you. Just like that rat fuck Henry used you. You vouched for that piece of shit. Brought him into my house. And now, you dumb fuck, you're gonna pay for it. Now, Joe.
Hey, if you're gonna pull that trigger, do it already.
What are you waiting for?
Vito, let's shoot this cocksucker.
Remember what we talked
On
about,
tree.
Joe? You're gonna throw all that away? Do it!
2.
Now!
Vito and Joe take care of Carlo's men before finally taking care of Carlo himself and giving him the coup de grace. Vito asks Joe about the offer Carlo made him and states that Carlo offered him a promotion in the family and his own crew if he took care of Vito. But he didn't follow through on the offer because...
Remember that $5 you owe me?
Vito and Joe go their separate ways when Leo says his infamous line.
Sorry, kid. Joe wasn't part of our deal.
With the main story out of the way, it's time to get into some things regarding the story and theorize why what happened. This has always been a thing among most Mafia families and members, the smart ones anyway, and we see the first instance of it in the first Mafia when Salieri has his boys steal a crate of cigars from the government, but the crate turned out to be a shipment of heroin, which caused that family's downfall. And when Henry makes the offer to Vito in the park to be on Carlo's level, he expresses doubt, but peer pressure on both sides involving money makes him reluctantly agree to be involved, which ultimately caused the Falcone's downfall as well. The reason why they freak out is because 1, when you're caught with drugs and narcotics, it's generally a harsh sentencing, like a life sentence. 2, the heat and police pressure. They can buy off all the cops and politicians all they want, but once the big guys, aka the feds, catch wind, it's basically GG unless you're 2 steps ahead or something. And 3, their public image and honor. The Mafia are known for controlling the gambling and loan sharking rackets, or victimless vices as they call it. Going into the hard drugs business destroys their credibility and ruins communities, further ruining their chance to buy off politicians and law enforcement. And the ones that do the hard stuff generally don't last long. We all seen it during the gameplay, and I know we all thought the same thing when it happened, but I guess the only real answer is he did it to save his and his friends' ass for a bit. The thing is, the high-ranking Mafia members like Frank Vinci knew about Vito's involvement in such things. He just wanted a confession, but I guess he'd already lied once, so he kept the fantasy going until it eventually caught up to him. The lies and dishonesty was honestly kind of pointless since they already knew he had done it, but they just wanted him to say it. It was going to be in deep shit regardless. He vouched for a damn rat and started a damn war. The famous Mafia 2 debate. Honestly, while I was going through the footage to make this video, and I got up to the part where they deal with the triads, I figured Mr. Wong just said Henry was a rat because they didn't want to do business with them anymore and was trying to just make them go away, until Leo and Carlo mentioned Henry's behavior. And after some research and speculation, this is yet again the dirty work of a greedy AAA publishing company. According to research, the original writer for Mafia 2, Daniel Vavra, who actually wrote the original Mafia game and a more recent successful title, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, originally wrote that Henry wasn't a rat and that Leo lied about such accusation, but he left the dev team due to alleged disagreements with 2K and they needed the game out. So they changed some stuff around and ended up running with the narrative of Henry really being a rat, which honestly makes sense why the ending felt so weird. And the fake cops that showed up were Falcone's men sent to take out the boys to give him an excuse to start a war. But of course it was never explained because of the pressure to finish the game. If you made it this far into the video, I appreciate you for coming along on this journey with me, and if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new for more content like this. I had a lot of fun diving into this. I love the Mafia stuff, man. Anyway, I will see you legends in the next one. Peace.